The Auburn Tigers are the outright champions of the SEC in the best year for basketball ever. But should this lock up the number one seed?
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub. I Joe. Be Will. By G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR for 15% off your weights and $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Our friends at Golden's Cast Iron, longtime sponsors of the War Report. Spring is here, guys. You should be outside grilling with your family, and Golden's Cast Iron has a product that has that covered. I got my dad the Kamado Grill Caesar for Father's Day a couple of years ago. We've been grilling on it ever since. B-Will has the fire pit, and of course, trying to get that summer body in shape. Get some weights from Golden's Cast Iron. Again, goldenscastiron.com/WR. Join a member. Become a member of the Green Name Gang. I see you guys piling in here, almost 100 already. We just got started. The Auburn Tigers are the outright champions of the SEC, and you should be an outright member of the War Report. Join the Green Name Gang. $5.99 a month. Help us build our community. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. If you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't made the decision to become a member yet, watch your email. You could be on the receiving end of one of these. YouTube chooses these at random. This is a great program. We appreciate everybody for participating in this. Let's see if we can get 20 memberships given away today. Also, our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers can deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Just hit higher or lower on any two players, and your entry has a chance to win big with our friends at Underdog Sports. Use code rapport here as well. It's not on the graphic, but please use code rapport to make sure that they know that the War Report sent you. And last but certainly not least, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code rapport to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Caesar Walker, let's jump into this, man. We are here. We are here. The Auburn Tigers are the outright champs of the SEC. They did it. And you know what? I think to celebrate, we're going to watch the moment it happened. There were a lot of us who felt like, look, they may not lock this thing up until the last game of the season when Auburn and Alabama meet in Neville. 2 games left. Crazy. The Auburn Tigers are the champs. The shot heard round the world in Tennessee is the one that did it. Let's take a quick look at that moment. Incredible moment there. I was watching. Were you watching? Were you watching the Tennessee game when this happened?
What was so amazing about that moment, Mike, is that it was in that moment I learned not to yell and scare my 2-year-old daughter watching sports. Because me and my wife looked at each other and said, "Ooh, ooh." Instead of, so that was a win for us too. But no, it was an amazing moment.
Oh man, yeah, it was a great moment. Lots of great basketball yesterday, and of course, the Auburn Tigers were watching this moment. Auburn social media captured the moment that the Tigers saw the shot heard around the world from Rocky Top. We have that for you here as well. Put it on a t-shirt. We ain't sharing. These guys said we are not sharing.
Call
Outright
God.
share for the SEC.
Call God, and we ain't sharing. Those are two
Oh my
shirts.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Look, lots of great things to talk about today. We're sticking basketball in chat. Look, help us celebrate. Jump in the chat here. Jump in the comments after the video. Obviously, let us know how you feel about the Auburn Tigers winning the outright SEC championship this
I
year.
want to see nothing but trophies in the chat. I want to
Exactly.
see nothing but trophies. Just
Trophies.
Yeah, I want to see nothing but trophies. Please give us our trophies, please.
Oh my goodness. Cue all the Drake songs about winning championships and trophies. Look, I want to start today's conversation talking about what this means, right? How much does it mean that you won the outright championship in a year like this, where all that's been talked about is the strength of the conference, how strong the SEC is this year, how competitive it was this year. Look, Tennessee obviously was going to be a tough out. We talked about on the show what a tough stretch Bama had in the lead up to the second matchup with Auburn. And you and I both felt very strongly, look, these guys are probably going to lose a game before they get to Auburn. And they've got to be perfect just to get a share. Obviously, that did not happen. They were not perfect. They played a tough game, but they made critical mistakes down the stretch that gave Tennessee a small opening, and the Volunteers took advantage of that. But, how much does it mean to win the SEC, do you think, outright like this? I talked about this with my good friend Doug Amos. I said that outright championship means something. You don't want to share. Not this year. This is not the year you want to share because you were the front runner the entire year. So a share feels like you collapsed down the stretch, or you gave somebody else an opening to get in, right? If you come from behind to grab a share, I think it's different this year. I think wire to wire, what a monumental trophy for the Auburn Tigers.
And you prove the doubters right, Mike, if you end up sharing, because again, it was something that began to be predicted by a lot of people that Auburn was going to drop one. Oh, this is the game. Even the game yesterday, College Game Day, 2 of the 3 people predicted Kentucky was going to win that game. So it was almost a matter of this has to be the game that Auburn drops one, a significant one. So for Auburn to lock up the SEC with 2 regular season games left, Mike,
Incredible.
Easily the best year of this conference ever is impressive. I actually thought this was going to come down to the final week, and Auburn basically wrapped it up before then.
Yeah, I don't know that I thought it would be wrapped up with 2 games left. We talked a lot about what that Texas A&M game might mean. Ike was worried about the Tigers being able to go down there and take that on. But ultimately, it's not come down to that. And so, we're going to talk about this later in the show. If you're Bruce Pearl, how do you manage these last 2 games knowing you have likely the number 1 overall seed already locked up? Because I don't think it's going to matter what happens in that SEC tournament. I have screamed that from the rooftops. I try to tell people at other schools, look, it just doesn't matter. You can go run on the tournament and you can get left out of this thing completely. Texas A&M, I thought they were on the most egregious end of receiving the ire from the committee in this process. We're going to play these conference tournaments. I think they have to matter outside of just winning it. But look, if you're Auburn, none of that matters because you are the best team in the country right now. They don't want to, and they're not going to, but they could drop the final 2, and I don't think anything changes for Auburn. I mean, whose resume still stacks up right now, even with 2 losses to end the season?
I mean, again, the wins that Auburn has had this year is impressive. Going into Tuscaloosa and beating an Alabama team convincingly. You didn't blow them out, but you were in control throughout that game. Beating Kentucky the way that you did. Kentucky got it within 6 a few times, but Kentucky, the game was out of reach for them. And Auburn just pretty much snatched their will from them down the stretch. And it was just amazing to see Kentucky, as explosive as they are offensively, struggle on offense mightily. Like, this team has been dominant, and it rivals what we've seen with the UConn team just a year ago. A team that just basically just overwhelmed the opposition. And that's what Auburn is doing in the big games, Mike. Right. And I think that's one of the things that kind of surprises people is you've seen Auburn maybe not dominate inferior opponents the way we'd want them to. But man, when it comes to these games like this, Kentucky, we saw what they did to Ole Miss at home. I mean, Auburn had an amazing week last week. Let's just talk about how well they shot. This team was on fire last week, and all of this lack of dominance, they put that on full display this week. So again, any critique you've had of this Auburn team, they've answered the bell.
Yeah. Look, the other question, I think, or the other storyline is Janai Broome did not have a great game by Janai Broome standards. Only 3 of 9 from the field, and Auburn won by 16 in this game. Now, he did other things. Obviously, he had 6 rebounds. The Mr. Double-Double came up short on both ends. He didn't have double digits in any category in this one. He did add 3 steals, no blocks for Janai Broome in this one, 1 assist. Again, 6 rebounds, 9 points.
Those are some critical steals too, Mike.
Yeah, but still out there affecting the game and doing things that maybe don't show up in the stat sheet. Talk about Janai Broome here. I don't think it's cause for concern. I think if anything, you're Auburn. You love winning a game like this where Janai doesn't play his best. But Miles Kelly, I will take you back to the non-conference. Miles Kelly came to a post-conference, and he was the one that said, you just never know who's going to be the guy on any given night on this team. Last night, he was the guy. 30 points on 10 of 17 shooting, 9 of 14 from 3. I think that broke a record in Rupp, like most threes made in Rupp or something like that. He broke some sort of record. 9 of 10 from the free throw line. He added 3. He was 1 of 1 from the free throw line. Wrong stat line. That was Chad Baker. But he added 1 steal, a couple rebounds, an assist here and there. But mostly it was points from Miles Kelly was his contribution. Just never let Kentucky back in.
And Kentucky matched up really well. Amari Williams is 7 feet. So the advantage that Janai Broome has enjoyed in games, he didn't really particularly enjoy that. Amari Williams is a very physical big, and he made it difficult for Janai to operate on the inside. And we saw Janai kind of struggle to get to his left at times in the game. But again, to your point, Janai affected the game in so many ways, and he's such a threat, Mike, that you still have to account for him on the court in ways that you probably wouldn't have to account for, like a Dylan Cardwell or another one of Auburn's bigs. He affects the game and he spreads the floor. And because of the threat of a Janai Broome, you can allow a Miles Kelly to get off, a Chad Baker-Mazara to get off, a Tahad Pettiford to get off, because you're still worried about Janai Broome. And the fact that he made 3 steals overall, but there were 2 steals that he led to, or that he caused, that led to fast break points that really and truly broke the backs of Kentucky when they were trying to make a run. He affected this game in so many different ways. And again, even if he's not his usual double self, he still affects the game. And he played a lot of minutes out there. It wasn't like he was a negative player on the court.
Yeah, I agree. I think you raise a good point. No matter how he's playing, teams still have to account for him, because there was an impending feeling that in the second half he was going to get it together, and you couldn't forget about him out there. He still played 33 minutes. So just the responsibility of having to account for Janai Broome and where he was at, he put up a couple threes in this one. He took 2 threes. One of them was a step back. And he's been hitting them. He's been hitting a couple a game. So it's something that you have to respect. But affecting shots around the rim.
Yes.
Now, Kentucky did okay in this game. I think 34 points in the paint for Kentucky in this one. So they did all right. Auburn had 26 points in the paint. But
that's the game, though, Mike. That's the game plan, because Kentucky, that's not how they play. They live beyond the 3-point line. So if you make them a 2-point scoring team, they did exceptional, but it was bad, because that's not how you beat teams. And so they made Kentucky a 2-point scoring threat. And that just didn't work in a game where Auburn was knocking down threes like they were Kentucky. Yeah,
agreed. Look, if you're Kentucky, Auburn defensively has the prowess to make you play whatever kind of game you don't want to play. So, offensively, they were having a hard time. You talk about Kentucky from the 3. I want to talk about that stat line here and how that played out in this one. Kentucky averages 26 attempted threes a game. Coming in, they were averaging 26 attempted threes a game. They only got off 17 attempts in this one. And what that says is that Auburn was running them off that 3-point line.
Yeah.
They just weren't giving them those shots. So they did not allow Kentucky to play the type of game that they normally would play. Now, Kentucky ended up only shooting 24% from 3, 4 of 17. But in high volume, Caesar, even at a lower percentage, you maybe get a few extra points if you're getting that shot off that makes this a little bit closer. You hit 3 more threes in this game. That 16-point lead is now a 7-point lead, and it looks very different coming down the stretch. So it's very important that Auburn not only defended the 3, they just didn't allow them to get those shots off.
Yeah. And Kobe Bray, he actually was the one having success for Kentucky. He was 4-7 for 3 points. The story of this game, though, was Atega Owe, who was in foul trouble and never could get it going for Kentucky. He's the other guy who's the 3-point threat. That played a major factor in this game because, again, Auburn's wings were going off. So obviously, if you're trying to stop these guys, Atega Owe trying to play defense, got in foul trouble. And again, the pressure Auburn was putting on Kentucky on the offensive side. Auburn actually playing amazing offense. It puts stress on a team like Kentucky trying to defend these guys, and you don't have anything in the tank when you get down on the offensive side. And Auburn is switching everything. That's another reason why they ran them off the 3-point. They switched everything, and typically when you don't switch, you give teams the cushion to be able to make those threes coming off of a screen. Auburn's switching everything, so you don't have those opportunities. So that kind of threw off a lot of what Kentucky wanted to do in this game. A masterful game plan by Auburn, even better executed by the players, and you truly showed a Kentucky team just looked vulnerable on their own court.
Yeah. I think if you're Bruce Pearl, defense has been your calling card, right? I think it's been your calling card, and it's the strength of this team. As good as this team can be offensively at times, just like any team that shoots a lot of threes, Auburn attempts I think like 26 threes a game as well too. Looking here at the stats, Auburn attempts 25.3 threes a game. So they're no slouches either in terms of trying to get off 3-point shots. But if those shots aren't falling, they've got other places to go. I think that's where teams like Alabama show themselves to have a major weakness. If the 3 isn't falling, how are they going to do? And what we see is that for the top teams in our league, you just got to fall 5 or 6 points off that 90, and you leave an opening for teams like Auburn and Florida to come in and beat you. And in these games, I do want to talk about this stretch of games here, Caesar, that Auburn won here. Look, when you played Alabama, they came in scoring 90 points a game. You scored 94 and they scored 85. So you completely flipped the script on them coming into this one. And Kentucky, the 3rd best scoring team in the country, and in their arena, you scored 94, they scored 78.
And could have scored more, just like you did in Tuscaloosa. Could have scored.
Yeah. Could put 100 on them.
Yeah.
So that's the way Auburn is turning the tables on teams, so to speak. I think offensively and defensively is very impressive. Bottom line is, Florida is the only team in SEC play to come in and hit their averages offensively against Auburn. And they had to shoot completely out of their minds to do it.
Yeah.
So, this was impressive in every single kind of way. I've been impressed with the Auburn Tigers, coming now. Obviously, they have Texas A&M and Alabama left on the schedule. Denver Jones was said to have had a bone bruise. Those can be tricky in terms of healing. A lot of times you can't put pressure on it. They said he was walking under his own weight, but certainly, there's a lot less pressure, I think, to play Denver Jones over the last 2 games. Let's talk about Todd Pettiford to close our opening segment. Todd Pettiford, 21 points on 6 of 10 shooting. He was 8 of 9 from the free throw line. He added 4 assists himself and 2 rebounds. He played 33 minutes, heavy minutes for the youngster. had all season long, we've talked about how he stepped up in big moments versus Iowa State, versus Houston, down the stretch. He is just a big shot maker. And it feels like the big time pundits out there refuse to acknowledge, for the most part, that Tahad Pettiford adds a dynamic to this team that most teams in college basketball don't have. Coming off the bench, your highly rated 5-star freshman is playing like a monster in big time games. This is where we saw Aiden Holloway go away last year, right? When the brights were the lightest, I'm sorry, when the stage was the biggest, his bright shone the dimmest. And Tahad Pettiford is the exact opposite of that. Now, has he had slow stretches? Sure, that's what you would expect from a 5-star freshman or just a true freshman. But man, to be able to just have a guy who can go out there, make plays off the dribble, create his own shot, and do what he did versus Kentucky without his 21 points, an average night from Tahad, and Kentucky's in it at the end. So this was big. What he did was big.
Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned a guy named Aiden in honor of Ike not being here. I don't know who that is.
He said he's going to acknowledge him. There's some stats he wants to point out, but he's gonna.
I don't know who you're talking about. But no, getting back to Tahad Pettiford. The game against Ole Miss, where Auburn just went nuts on their own court.
Mm-hmm.
Tahad had like 5 points or something like that. Or he had like 5 assists and 4 points. He didn't play a lot in that game, Mike, and I watched him. When he was on the court, and even though his stats just didn't look like what we were accustomed to seeing with him, averaging 10 points and whatnot, he looked really efficient when he was out there. Obviously, he's not a true point guard. He plays off the ball. What I've been impressed with Tahad over the course of this year is how well, like Denver Jones, how well he's been running point. How he's been able to find Janai Broome down in the paint and get the ball to him has been impressive, Mike. Even when he drives and dumps off the ball or no look passes to Janai Broome, that like he's running the offense, and it's been impressive to see for an off the ball type of guard.
Incredible.
So he's very efficient when he's on the court. And you ask that guy on the road against Kentucky to play 33 minutes. All he did, Mike, was just give you 21, shooting 6 of 10, 4 assists, no turnovers. Like
incredible.
The kid is he doesn't play like a freshman at all. Obviously, what we were impressed with him early in the season was how fearless he was in big key moments, the way he would pull up and take shots. His best highlight to me is when he pulled up and hit that 3 in Tuscaloosa in a moment where Bama was running and had tied up the game. That's clearly his moment, right? But it takes guys years to even have the as Stephen A calls it, the unmitigated gall to even pull up and make a shot like that. But to see him be efficient when he's on the court and not a liability, and this is your kid coming off the bench, and he gets into the game early. He has truly been everything that he was hyped up to be this year. And the beauty of it is that Auburn hasn't had to rely on him, Mike. And you pointed this out a lot. Auburn hasn't had to rely on him to win games, which means he's been able to come into his own and develop and build on the confidence that he already had when he stepped foot on Auburn's campus. It's been truly a sight to see.
4 out of 5 Kentucky starters scored in double figures. Look, their starting 5 for the most part did the job. There just was nothing beyond that. They couldn't get anything going. Only 5 points from the bench from Kentucky. That will spell doom for you when you play Auburn. I'm telling you, if you play Auburn and you're only going to get 5 points from the bench, good luck beating the Auburn Tigers. Before we get to the break here, let's get to some of your comments. King Richard says, one more shutout to the Auburn baseball team beating number 8 Oregon State yesterday to start the season 10-1. Good to see a resurgence on the diamond there for Butch Thompson's squad. Certainly, he's probably my favorite Auburn coach.
He was. I mean, they were primed for a comeback this year, and you know, he's a good coach. So I didn't. I expected this. I expected this on the diamond. Shout out to them.
Yeah, Ephesians 2:8-9 says ESPN not having redundancy for the stream is absolutely insane, man. They do nothing but squeeze money out of fans by forcing you to buy streaming and then miss a whole half. Unacceptable. So Nina with the super chat says, can we talk about the debacle by ABC ESPN for the majority of the second half? Now, we talked about this yesterday, so I don't want to belabor the point, but I do want to provide some explanations on what we understand happened. Again, Ike Jones was on site for the War Report, and in the post game, they said there was fire to a generator. And while they put the fire out, they were unable to get the stream back up. Now, what we have learned since it was the local ABC affiliate was responsible for the broadcast, and ESPN was tapping their feed as they do because they own ABC. So the local ABC affiliate was responsible for that. And they were the ones who did not have redundancies in place. And so the stream was unable to be restored before the end of the game. Either way, huge misstep, I think, if you're ESPN. I think for a top, you got the number 1 team in the country playing the number 17 team in the country in historic game, what ended up being a historic game, and you missed the last over 10 minutes of play.
Yeah,
it's unacceptable. So work with the ABC affiliate, with the local affiliate. Make sure you get that right. They should have sent redundancies to site. I just don't understand how a $1 billion network lets something like this slip.
Somebody's having a rough weekend. Just know that much.
Yeah. That's just an insane mishap there. We post highlights of the games after the games. There's nothing to post. Like literally nobody got it. Yeah.
Y'all so stupid in the chat. Y'all like, yeah, it's because of Miles Kelly. He was on fire. That's
Miles Kelly set fire to the generators. That's funny.
Generators on fire, Miles.
Oh my goodness. So Nina, we appreciate you for gifting the membership. There's 19 more to go, guys. Let's see if we can get some memberships gifted here on the stream. DJ says, do we rest up Denver/Broome and get more playtime for JP and Howard at A&M? I think certainly you get JP Pegues off the bench. Some mix of him and Tahad, right? Because you may end up needing him, Caesar, down the stretch. Bone bruises are tricky. Fortunately, he has lots of time to rest up. Look, you don't play Bama until Saturday, March the 8th, right? And the SEC tournament, if you're Auburn, you won't play another game after the 8th until the 14th. So the 14th through the 16th presumably would be the games that Auburn plays. And that's even assuming that they win a game in the SEC tournament. I mean, you might only have 4 games over the next, 14, 15 days. So I think I don't know about Broome. I think that great players need to stay in a groove. So he needs to play some. So don't rest him. If you're going to rest him, you limit his minutes, but you get him on the court. And then for Denver, because of the injury, I agree. I just think you just let that thing heal for as long as you need to. You built this team to withstand the injury of one player. You did. And Tahad proved it last night. So you just need Tahad to step in there, man, and do what Tahad does. He can run that offense personally. So we'll see how Bruce Pearl decides to manage that. Mr. Gibson, we appreciate the super chat. Facts or nah, the January 25th UT games was the most defining and programming changing wins. I think that was a big, huge win for Auburn to keep the momentum going in the season. They wanted so badly to take the respect from you, and you held off Tennessee. And if Tennessee wins that game, we're having a little bit of a different discussion. But in terms of momentum, it may change the way your team plays.
You can make an argument. You can make a definite argument for this game.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that's a stretch or out of pocket to say that was a program-defining win.
I think Maui winning the Maui Invitational, beating Iowa State the way that you did, coming back. I think they were down 18-17 in that game against Iowa State, coming back and beating them, beating North Carolina convincingly. Obviously, North Carolina kind of fell off early on in the season. And then you just dominate Memphis who was looking impressive up to that point. To me, it was one of those moments where we were like, oh, wait a minute, this Auburn team looks this team is different. But obviously, when you get into conference play and you get that test about you from a Tennessee team that, to your point, they had something to play for as well. To beat them with Janai coming back, and you wasn't even sure if he was going to play in this game, probably shouldn't have played, and had an amazing game. It sets you on a trajectory. You can also count points to the South Carolina game, which Janai got hurt, and all that game looked in doubt. And again, Auburn's wings start shooting. They start making shots, and they pulled away from South Carolina on the road. We've seen South Carolina embarrass Arkansas yesterday. Like, South Carolina can be dangerous on the road at home. So there's a few games that you can point to. Not mad that you point to the Tennessee game. There's a couple of games where I'm like, okay, this team is different. This team is really different.
Let's get to the break here, Caesar. After the break, we're going to update you guys on some Auburn news and talk more about Auburn basketball's historic outright regular season championship. Guys, share this video on social media using @TheWarReport, #GetYourWeight Also hit like and subscribe. That helps us in the algorithm on YouTube as we try to grow our community. 300 of you guys here with us on a Sunday talking Auburn sports. @TheWarReport on X and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back after to break to talk more Auburn sports and especially Auburn basketball.
This edition of The War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
As always, we want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR for all your workout, grill out, and chill out needs. Code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights, and use code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. goldenscastiron.com/WR so they know that the War Report sent you. Join our community, guys. I saw some signups there. I saw some gifted memberships. We love that. Help us continue to grow our community. We're going to be on the road a lot in the next month, Caesar, covering Auburn basketball. Ike and I will be in Nashville. We're presumably going to be in Lexington. Then we're going to be in Atlanta. And then hopefully we're in San Antonio covering the journey that is the Auburn Tigers basketball team this year. You can help us keep that work going by joining as a member. Again, gifted memberships, guys. Let's get a few more given away here. We appreciate that. Just smash that gifted membership button. Also, our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers can deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Just sign up, download the app, and use code RAPPORT. Pick higher or lower on two players on your entry, and bam, you have a chance to win big-time cash with our friends at Underdog Sports. We appreciate them for sponsoring the segment. And as always, the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code RAPPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, bammers, annoying LSU fans, whatever you need, the voices to quiet down around you, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Our guy, Richard, longtime sponsor of the show. We appreciate him. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast platform. The War Report is there bringing you lots of great audio-only content. So whether you're on your way to the gym, on your way to work, at the grocery store, if you want to check out what's going on in Auburn sports, we're putting out lots of great content in audio-only format for you guys to check out. Please continue to support our work over there. Sign up, subscribe, hit that automatic download button. That helps us a ton. Caesar, let's get back into some comments here before we continue the show. Anthony Long with the super chat. Has anyone figured out why Jason Williams hates Auburn?
This is your question right here.
Listen, I'm going to be on this crusade for a while. I know bro knows ball. I know he knows basketball. And Andrea Carter, first of all, can we just agree Andrea is invited to the cookout? Andrea Carter is invited to the cookout. And she has consistently.
Why is she invited to the cookout?
She's consistently ridden with the Tigers in the face of her professional counterparts, consistently and illogically picking the other side of this. Just because I feel like they think Auburn's due for another loss. Rather than looking at what is, Auburn hasn't lost a road game in the SEC this year. My friend, Zach and I talked about this. The whole history of like Auburn at Rupp. I said this before. Zach and I even talked about it. I told you this. I didn't think it matters. I don't think it matters this year. This isn't the same Kentucky. It's not Kentucky and everybody else in the SEC this year, Caesar. And I think that
if we're gonna be real, it ain't been that way in a while.
Yeah, I just think people like Jay Williams are falling for old narratives when clearly the bar has been reset by Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates. Let's keep it a buck, right? It's not just Kentucky and everybody else. It's Kentucky, it's Tennessee, it's Florida, it's Auburn, right? It's Mississippi State-ish at times, right? Missouri, they're frauds, but they win enough games to make it interesting. Ole Miss, they're definitely frauds because they're frauds at everything they do. But if you look at the standings, which we'll talk about, ton of ranked teams in the conference, over half the conference ranked. We'll get there in a second. But I don't understand Jay Williams. I just don't understand it. What do you have to do if you're Auburn before this guy will pick you in a major matchup?
Has he ever picked Auburn?
I don't know. In a big game, I don't know.
Yeah.
In a big game. Not in some, in the game. And
not against Ole Miss, not against those teams, but Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky.
Yeah. In a big game, I don't know he's ever picked Auburn, right? Jackson, we appreciate you signing up as a YouTube member. Thank you. Martin with 5 War Report memberships given away. We appreciate you guys for that. I think that's 7. Let's see if we can get 13 more of those joints given away today, Caesar. Jumping back into the conversation, first and foremost, I do want to make sure, I think it's important that we acknowledge Auburn football released a statement saying that head coach Hugh Freeze was diagnosed with prostate cancer. All signs point to early detection, and it looks as if he's going to make a full recovery, not looking to take any time off here. He will continue to coach his team. Our prayers go out to Coach Hugh Freeze in his battle with prostate cancer. I want to read the official statement by the football team. He said, recently, Coach Freeze was diagnosed with an early form of prostate cancer. Thankfully, it was detected early, and his doctors have advised that it is very treatable and curable. He will continue his normal coaching duties and responsibilities, and with forthcoming proper treatment is expected to make a full recovery. Coach Freeze is incredibly appreciative of our medical professionals and has asked that we use his experience as a reminder of the importance of prioritizing and scheduling annual health screenings. This is part of the work that Bruce Pearl's Outlive Foundation does, Caesar, in terms of making sure people get tested, and that you can the earlier you catch cancer, the better your survival rate, almost no matter what type of cancer it is. A lot of forms of cancer are treatable these days. I'm very, very thankful and grateful, and I thank God that Coach Freeze was able to catch his early. Because before he was a football coach, he was a son, a father, a brother, right? He's a human being. And, I think that it's important to remember his humanity in these moments and make sure that we stand with each other as members, as human beings in these moments. So, Coach Hugh Freeze, our prayers go out to you, sir. We're asking God for a speedy and a full recovery so he can continue to bless the people in his life. Auburn is blessing people on the basketball court with L's, and we're going to talk more about that. Looking at the SEC standings right now, as we mentioned, Auburn has won the SEC outright with 2 games left. The 27-2 Tigers, 15-1 in conference, are 3 games clear of Florida and Alabama at this point. 3 full games clear with 2 games left. That's what makes them the outright champions. They are 4 games clear of Tennessee, 5 of Missouri, 6 games clear of Texas A&M. All these teams are ranked. So right now, currently in conference, Auburn 1, Florida 3 in the nation, Alabama 6, Tennessee 5, Missouri 14, Texas A&M 12, Kentucky 17, and Mississippi State 24. Now, these will shift a little bit. Auburn is clearly number 1 in the net. They're number 1 in every ranking that matters right now. But Florida,
Vandy might creep back up in there.
Yeah, right, with the big win.
Missouri, yeah,
you see the end of that one. That incredible execution by Vandy down the stretch. Auburn number 1. the next highest rated net team is Florida. And let me tell you something. Right now, in my mind, those are your 4 number 1 seeds right there. Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Tennessee is going to enter the conversation here with the win over Bama, so we'll see how that goes down the stretch. But I think the SEC is in prime position to get 2 number 1s into this NCAA tournament.
I think that for Tennessee, you are definitely rooting for Bama to beat Florida this week to make that a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
So Florida has to win out to solidify that.
Yeah. You would own a win over Bama, right? If you're Florida, and that solidifies your spot, I think, as a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Outside of that, honestly, I don't think there are a lot of really good candidates for that 4th number 1 seed spot. I think Houston's in. I think Duke is in. I think those teams have done enough, right? Like Duke hasn't fallen off it yet. I don't think same rules apply.
I don't think there's anything Duke can do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they own one of the best wins in the country over Auburn, albeit at home in a terribly officiated game, but they own it, and their schedule is wheat sauce. So, I'm not expecting any changes there. Houston is a really impressive team. Now, you guys know I cover UCF. They just clinched the Big 12 this weekend, right? Outright. Yeah, so they are the outright champions of the Big 12, which is the second best conference in college basketball this year. I don't think that's a debate. But the ACC is by far the worst. They're terrible. But you're Duke, and so you're getting the benefit of the doubt because you have a candidate for National Player of the Year and Cooper Flagg on your squad. But in the 4th, 5th, and 6th spots in the net, they're all SEC teams: Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, in that order. Right. The next highest rated SEC team would be Missouri at 14, and they are in no danger of winning a number 1 seed. Try to tell those jokers over there that they want to argue with me, so it is what it is. Look, we've agreed that this is the best year I think any conference has ever had. 8 ranked teams. All the teams that I mentioned, again, Auburn. Currently, this will change around after the results on Saturday. I'm interested to see. Kentucky's not going to fall out of the top 25 after losing to Auburn. I believe Mississippi State got the win yesterday.
They did win. They did.
Right.
They beat
Texas A&M took an L yesterday to Florida.
Yes.
Right. But that's not going to knock them out of the top 25 either. Missouri took the L to Vandy. I doubt they fall from 14 out of the rankings. Everybody who's ranked right now is going to stay ranked come tomorrow.
The only team that concerns me, I think Texas is probably out. They're probably not one of the first 4 out. Georgia has made things interesting. They was one of the first 4 out. They went on the road and just handled business against Texas. Arkansas laid the funkiest of eggs on the road against South Carolina because they were a bubble team that I think Lenardi had them one of the first 4 in, and then they lost in the way they did against South Carolina. Easily the worst team in the SEC. I think that may put them on the outskirts going into the final week, but we'll have to see. Again, Auburn had an opportunity to get 13 teams into the tournament. At this point, they're looking like 12, which will give them the most of any conference, I think. But yeah, it's interesting to see that. To me, the story is who on the bubble is going to be able to play themselves into the tournament.
Right. If you're Vandy, big win, obviously. I think Vandy's in at this point.
Vandy's been in. I think Vandy's fine. Vandy's fine.
I do want to point out the absurdity that Jason Williams went on a whole rant before the game talking about Arkansas almost beating Auburn. Big Z went 0 for 10. That never happens. This guy makes my head hurt. And then Arkansas goes out and loses to 12-17 South Carolina. They get 19-piece, almost nearly a 20-piece by South Carolina. Arkansas, I think, should be out at this point. I just think if they're on the bubble, just kick them right out. This is they're a solid team, and they've given a lot of teams a run for their money, but I just don't know that they've done enough to get into this NCAA tournament. And I think that is a damning loss versus South Carolina that they suffered yesterday.
I mean, you had two impressive wins down the stretch. You beat Kentucky on the
Mhm.
road. You beat them in Rupp, and then you beat Missouri. You beat Missouri, which also is impressive, right? So you're making a case down the stretch that, hey, we're improving as a team, but you can't continue to make that argument after you lose to the worst team in the SEC. Right? South Carolina got their second win in conference play against you. You can't keep making the argument that we're ascending and improving and drop a game to them. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, it really is unacceptable. You've got Georgia sitting down there at 18-11, 6-10 in conference. Texas at 5-11. They've been a tough out for a lot of teams this year as well too. Oklahoma had a thriller there. I think ultimately they ended up losing, and then LSU at 3-13, obviously not in the conversation. But I think from Vandy on up, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 teams solidly in this tournament, with maybe an outlier in Arkansas or Georgia.
I think Georgia's in good shape. I think it's shaky for Arkansas at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again,
they may still get in there. They're definitely on the bubble, Mike, but I don't think they helped their cause yesterday.
They certainly did not. Looking at Georgia's remaining schedule, they've got 2 games left. South Carolina and Vanderbilt, both winnable games. So if you're Georgia, you can't slip down the stretch. I think a loss, makes it really iffy for them. And then if you're Arkansas, you've got a remaining schedule of Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. So 2 good prove it games for Arkansas down the stretch. If they can win those 2, then maybe they move slightly, a little further into this. One thing we do know is that everybody is behind the Auburn Tigers. So I do want to close the show talking about what do we expect from Bruce Pearl down the stretch here with his Auburn Tigers. I don't want to say they're not playing for anything. Okay, and certainly he wants to finish with the best record he possibly can. Now, even if they decide to rest guys, and when I say rest, I don't mean sit out, I mean limit minutes. The good thing is you're the deepest team in the country for a reason, Caesar. So the guys who are coming in, like getting guys like Turtle experience, getting JP Pegues back on the court. This is a guy who hit a shot heard around the world in last year's NCAA tournament for Furman. So he's no stranger to big-time college basketball on the biggest stage. What do you expect from Bruce Pearl here over these next 2 games? I don't think he even envisioned himself in this situation where with 2 games left, they won outright, and he's got a chance to essentially start turning his eyes to the NCAA tournament before he even hits the SEC tournament.
Mike, he went on record before conference play saying that he expects Auburn to lose games in conference play. I think this team has far exceeded even his expectations of what he thought they were going to do. And that's not that he was doubting them. I think he was being realistic and respectful of the competition that Auburn was going to face. And they faced amazing teams in conference play. They far exceeded his expectations. I don't know what Bruce Pearl is trying to do at this point. Obviously, you want to protect your number 1 ranking. I would think it'll be a shame to lose your number 1 ranking on the final week of the regular season. Auburn has held on to it. Is this going to be week 8 or week 9?
I think this is week 9. They'll be headed in as number 1 team.
Mike, that's insane to be the number 1 team that long. And so going into the final week, obviously you want to hang on to that. So you got a lot that you're playing for. I think just like you want to win the SEC outright, you want to remove any doubt about whether or not you're the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. So I think Auburn owes it to themselves to do what they got to do. I'm not against thinking that you need to rest some guys and give guys like Ja'Kai Howard, JP Pegues, Turtle some more playing experience, because some of these guys have done well when they've played. They've gotten some of those minutes. So obviously you're going to feel like you're going to have to rely on some of these guys in tournament play. You want to get them some experience in some big games against A&M on the road and at home against Bama. to the degree in which you do that, because you still want to win these games, I think that's something that the coaching staff is going to have to determine in terms of how you split up some of those minutes. But I do think that Denver Jones probably is going to rest a little bit more, especially early in the week against A&M. That's a quick turnaround for him. So I would expect to see definitely JP Pegues in this game for sure. We've been seeing Turtle throughout. He's been getting some minutes, played a little bit yesterday when Janai Broome got in foul trouble. So they'll figured out ways to work him in. I expect to see a little bit more of him, but definitely JP.
Right. Look, it's going to be. I just think it's going to be an interesting management job that Bruce Pearl has down the stretch here. To see, you're right. I don't know that there's anything that they could do to fall off that number 1 seed at this point. You've just won so many games, and
I don't think so either. But you just don't want to. You don't want to make it a conversation. Right? You don't want to make this a conversation.
Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be tough.
I say, I mean, again, split one of these games. You don't even have to win them both. But if you split one of these games, I think you remove this from being a conversation.
I agree with that as well too. Let's get to some comments before we get out of here today. Alphaholic says OU is an NIT team. He's relegating them to the not important tournament.
I think Texas is too now. They lost to Georgia. The Georgia-Texas game this past weekend was an elimination game from the tournament, in my opinion, because both of those two were bubble teams.
Yeah. Chio G says if Alabama is a 2 seed, they can't be put in the region that Auburn is in. It's true. I don't know about this. I don't know about this. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't know. Jack W. Dalton says, I've just jumped on. Do we rest anyone in the next 2 games like Denver Jones? Do we try to win the SEC tournament? The most important win is the NCAA. We talked about this at length, Jack. If you're just jumping on, Denver Jones has a bone bruise, so 100% he's going to be rested. I would expect him not to see the court in the next game. There's no reason to risk it if you're Auburn, because there's nothing at risk other than perception of that number 1 ranking right now in the AP. You are the number 1 team in the net. I don't know if that changes with a loss here at the end of the season, given your entire body of work is almost completely turned in at this point. So we'll see what they do. But yes, certainly there will be some guys that they will nurse back to health to be at full strength for the NCAA tournament. Alphaholic comes back and says, A&M hasn't beaten any of the top dogs in the SEC. Auburn, Bama, Tennessee, Florida, they're iffy. Good non-con schedule, though. Agreed. They have a loss to UCF at the beginning of the season. A&M does. They're such a fascinating team to me, right? They've been consistently ranked near the top. They opened their season with a 64-61 loss to UCF. They lost to Oregon 80-70 in the non-con, but they did beat Creighton. They beat Purdue. And then they opened with a win versus Oklahoma when Oklahoma was 17. And then you had 2 straight losses to Alabama and Kentucky, one at home, one on the road. A loss at Texas by a point, that kind of stings. And they've been on a 4-game slide since they beat Arkansas. Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Florida, all L's. So
and they got up for Florida pretty well, but they just didn't have enough to keep up with them.
They lose to Auburn. That's 5 straight L's. So look, man, they're in the tournament, but good, like, whew, boy.
Yeah, they're looking at like a 4 seed at this point.
Yeah, they could. I believe they'll beat LSU at the end of the year. That's their last game, but losing 5 out of your last 6 to end your season is certainly not the momentum you want going into the tournament.
Agreed.
Jack W says, good news, James. It's been 5 years since I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Thank God for his healing. We thank God for your healing as well, too, Jack.
Absolutely.
Thankful to hear that. Virginia Double Joel says, who cares if we're number 1 overall as long as they keep us in the South Regional? I'm going to disagree with this.
I think you got to be number 1 to get in the South, I think.
Yeah, you don't stay in that South Regional if you're not number 1 overall. So I think maybe that's how that works there. But being that number 1 overall seed guarantees you that you're going to Lexington for the first round, which is what Auburn wants. It's going to be great for fans. That's going to be great for Auburn. because the Sweet 16 is in Atlanta, and so you get to stay completely regional for the first 2 rounds. Unbelievable advantage, I think. Auburn fans are going to buy those tickets up. Moving on here, Alphaholic says, not saying a home win means you're the superior team, in my opinion, but I can see the case for others. A thought there. Devin, always appreciate Devin. What are they going to say if UNC beats Duke this weekend? They'll just brush it off. A loss to Duke. What is that? A loss to UNC. What does that do for Duke here at this point? I don't know, man. Their schedule has just been so weak. I know they have the win versus Auburn earlier in the season. If those 2 teams had to play again at a neutral site, I'm picking Auburn all day, every day.
Yeah, I don't know what it does at this point. I think Duke is. I think everything that's available for Duke. I think if you're Duke, you're hoping for Auburn to collapse. But at this point, I don't even know that Auburn can collapse.
Yeah,
I don't even think that's a thing at this point. As far as being a number 1 seed, and I think Duke has achieved all their goals at this point. So I don't know if losing. I really don't think losing to UNC, which I don't think they will. Losing to UNC changes anything for Duke. I don't.
Yeah. Like, just if you think that they are who they are at this point, I'm not sure how that's changing. Alphaholic comes back and says head-to-head matters. I'm okay if you want to say Duke is better than Auburn based on that, but Auburn can lose out and still deserve the number 1 overall seed based on resume. I agree with this to some extent. Either head-to-head matters or it doesn't. So if you're going to count the head-to-head, sure, but that's only one part of the form. Head-to-head does not trump overall body of work.
Right.
To me, it doesn't trump. And especially when you're looking at a body of work like what Auburn does, because Duke lost games too. They lost games too. And
Auburn has a better record than Duke.
And Auburn has 2 really impressive losses, whereas Duke has some head-scratching losses. So, look, Auburn avoided their head scratchers.
Who they lose to? Kentucky?
Who, Duke? They lost to Clemson.
They lost to Clemson. Clemson is ranked now.
Are they?
Yeah, they're ranked. They're like top 15 now.
Okay.
They did lose to Kansas.
Okay.
Duke lost to Kansas early in the year, and that loss has not aged well because Kansas is no longer ranked. And I think they lost to Kentucky too. Chad, help me out. I think
I'm looking to do schedule right now, right? So Duke lost to Kentucky, and they lost to Kansas, and they lost to Clemson. Those are their 3 losses.
All right, I thought so. I thought Kentucky was the other team.
That Clemson loss sticks out to me, right? It does. Now they were
unranked at the time they played them.
Right. They were unranked at the time they played, yes. But they were still like a net 30.
Okay.
So, but if you're Auburn, your losses are Duke and Florida.
Right.
2 currently top 5 teams. And, I look, man, I get it. Kansas is traditionally tough, but that's not a great, like
I said, it hasn't aged well. That loss at the time, Kansas was looking like they were going to be. They were
number 1 overall when they lost.
Yeah.
By 3 points.
So no, that loss does not look good now.
I'm not a big fan of the transitive property thing, but also like you lost to a Kentucky team that Auburn ran. So in their house. I don't know. Like I said, it's going to be an interesting conversation. So Nina with the super chat, we appreciate that. So what date do we think Auburn will play in the tournaments? Trying to book rooms and tickets.
I've never been good at predicting this.
Yeah, like here's what you're faced with, Nina, is for the SEC tournament, Auburn will not play until Friday, which is, they skip the first 2 days. They come in the quarterfinals on Friday. So if you're going to Nashville, you potentially need a room for Friday night or Thursday night if you get there the night before the game. Whether they advance or not, that's obviously up to them, but they got to win 3 straight games to win that SEC tournament because the SEC does their tournament final on Sunday. Now, as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned, that first round starts the very next weekend, which is the weekend of the 22nd. And if you're Auburn, you're either playing Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. We just don't know yet. So until that comes out, right, like there's always a day in between. So the round of 68 will start on Thursday, and we don't know if they will be in that round of 68 on Thursday or Friday. Either way, you're going to need to be there on Thursday and potentially there until Sunday. The situation we found ourselves in Spokane was Auburn played on Friday, I believe, and then they lost, and we had booked flights back, Caesar, for Monday, thinking that they would at least make it to Sunday, and they didn't make it to Sunday. So it was a sad and tragic situation for the Auburn
He was
Tigers.
in an amazing place, so you got to hang around a little bit, right, in Spokane? No?
I hate that place, and I'm never going back. But yeah, so that is your situation. I don't know how close you live to Atlanta, Nina, but it's going to be the same thing the next weekend. It's either a Thursday, Saturday, or a Friday, Sunday schedule there, depending on how they decide to put them in. So just keep that in mind. San Antonio will be a little bit different since there are only 4 teams going. I think they do like Saturday, Monday, or something like that. So
yes, they do. That is correct.
Saturday, Monday for the Final Four, and then the championship game on Monday. I will never understand Monday championship game season.
I mean, that's college. That's just college football. Basketball does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, crazy. Look, great conversation today. Before we get out of here, final thoughts. Auburn Tigers, the outright SEC champions, kings of the world right now. We played the clips. We rolled them. They are excited. Fans are excited. This has the potential to match that 2018-2019 run that we saw from those Auburn Tigers, where nobody kind of saw them coming. Everybody sees them coming this year. What do you see coming for the Auburn Tigers?
They look strong, man. They just got to stay healthy. I think that's been the biggest thing we've said all year long, is that this team is built to make a deep run in the tournament. They just have to stay healthy. And that's been when Auburn, to just be honest, that's been when they've been the most vulnerable, is when they haven't been at 100%. And I think if they can get guys rested, stay in playing shape and form, rare midseason form, we were concerned that, hey, the question is this the 21-22 Auburn team that may have peaked a little bit early? Teams found their weaknesses. Auburn wasn't able to adapt. There's no weaknesses here. Auburn is able to play any style of play you give them, take any type of player away. Other guys step up. They just have to stay healthy and get ready to make this deep run. I think it's a great, exciting time. If you're an Auburn fan, seeing this team survive a brutal SEC and do better than some of the really good teams in our conference. Auburn is definitely king of the SEC, perhaps even king of college basketball world. They just got to prove it in a few weeks.
I agree. Look, guys, I want to thank you for joining the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR and use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights, and code TWR for $65 off. Fire Pits and Kamado Grills. We appreciate everybody who gifted memberships on today's stream. Also want to take a shout out to our sponsors, Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Our guy Richard dropping a little note in there for everybody who comes from the War Report. We appreciate him for sponsoring the show. Also, our friends at Underdog Sports. Visit Underdog Sports and download the app. New customers can deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Just pick higher or lower on 2 players on your entry, and bam, you have an opportunity to win big time cash with Underdog Sports. Also, follow us on podcast, the Auburn Express, the Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content, lots of variety there. Visit our merch store for some fly War Report gear. Look, we don't promote the merch store as much as we used to, but you guys are still going there and buying stuff, and we appreciate that. Lots of quality things there. Those top 2 are dry fit shirts as well, too. They fit great, and they feel great. Nice to work out in. But lots of great stuff there. You can help support the work we're doing and be a little bit of advertisement for the War Report by getting some merch from the merch store. You can find that link right there on the graphic or at warreport.com or in the comments after the video. Caesar, that's it. As always, share this video on social media at the War Report and hashtag Get Your Weight Up. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on social media at the War Report, X and Instagram. TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.